Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another session of Tech Talks. Today, the topic that we'll be focusing on is Gig, the new work model. We did another webinar a month ago, and we launched our report. So this is in continuation with what we discussed, the importance of Gig as a new work model. And before I move ahead, I'll just quickly introduce myself. I'm Neha Jain. I'm a senior analyst with NASSCOM Insights, and I cover future of work, patents, and IT services, plus talent at NASSCOM Insights. Now, we move ahead with today's session, I'll just quickly run the audience through the key findings of our report. And for that, I'll have to share my screen. I'll just do a quick run through. Okay, so last month, NASSCOM worked on the report Future of Workforce, Decoding the Gig Workforce 2.0. And I think this was in continuation with what we had done in 2020, looking at how the whole gig workforce scenario was for the tech industry. What we have seen is, globally, and the trend is same in India, where we have seen a continuous rise of gig workforce across industries, and it's a growing phenomena which is expected to, reap in $455 billion by 2023. That's the gross volume that, is expected by 2023. Plus, if we look at the number of gig workforce that we will have in India by FY30 is 23.5, which is basis the recent Niti Aayog report. So this is across sector. What we are seeing is there's a huge rise of gig that is happening and is expected to continue in the coming years. Now, what we now going forward with, how we, envisage and see these trends, and specifically for the tech industry, is that it's an important factor where, which is helping the industry close on the tech talent demand supply gap. So what we have seen is there are certain sort of skills which are in huge demand, but we have limited supply. So I think gig is one way of closing that demand supply gap, where one person can be deployed on multiple projects across multiple organizations, so that his or her skills can be put to right usage and everybody can be benefited from that. Now, other strategies that we have seen to close demand supply gap is, people are hiring freshers. There is an increased focus on tier 2, tier 3 cities. But I think subcontracting and gig is one of the key reasons where specific skills which are in huge demand, we really are able to close the gap there. Now, before I move forward on other key findings, I'll just quickly tell you, how we are defining gig in the tech industry. So any profile which is freelancing, independent consultant, project-based worker, or a temporary or a part-time hire, they're all considered as gig in the report. Now, if you look at the broader gig landscape, so we are looking at both external platforms, which are basically solving for additional workforce requirements. So maybe what Pactera is doing, Flexing IT is doing. And on the other side, companies themselves have actually, devised some internal gig platforms where they are able to maximize the utilization and they're able to meet specialized skill requirements that are created by clients. So, for example, Infosys have Accelerate. TCS also have an internal platform that they are working on. So that way they're able to use their employees to, to the maximum. Now, what we saw this year was that, Indian tech segments have entered the zone of optimism as far as gig promoter score is concerned. So maybe previously, not all segments, say your IT services, BPM, not every segment was using gig to an extent, but now what we have seen is there has been a rise and they have moved to zone of optimism where they are utilizing gig for themselves. Moving forward, now looking at specifically on the gigs workforce side with respect to technology industry, what we have seen that the total organizations that we surveyed, 2/3 of the organizations are now employing gig workers versus 57% in 2020. So there has been a rise in use of gig. Now, if we look at, there is a rise, but the key highlight here is that organizations are still using a smaller chunk of workforce, which is gig. So if we look at the numbers, 65% of the organizations highlighted that the proportion of gig workforce is less than 5% for them. And now, again, if you look at larger versus smaller, so smaller organizations with less than 2,000 full-time employees, their proportion is greater than 5%. But if you look at most of the larger organization, it is less than 5%. What we have also seen that for employing gig, the top strategy that the company is using is referral hiring. Apart from that, in terms of managing gig force internally, 85% of the organization said it's a shared responsibility between HR and business teams. However, when it comes to reviewing the performance, the majority organization came back and said that, it's the responsibility of business managers. What we have seen, and I think that is because of in the post-pandemic scenario, is that there's no location preference. I think that holds true for all sort of workers in the current scenario. But what we have seen specifically for gig also, organizations are quite flexible and they don't have location preference. The last thing that we would like to highlight in our survey is that 40% of the organization, they fix the compensation at the beginning of the project. So with respect to the compensation, most organizations prefer that they should fix the compensation before the start of the project or the engagement. And 1 out of the 4 gig workers hired for projects now has a duration of over 12 months compared to, up to 9 months, which was seen in 2020. So what we are seeing is that there is more hiring of gig, plus the project duration is also going up. So a trend which emphasizes on the role of gig workers. Now, what we have also seen that, the top demand drivers that organizations are highlighting for hiring gig is, the need for specialized skills. Plus, they want to manage their employee demand elasticity. There are times when they need more people. There are times when they need less workforce. So I think gig is able to help them, and that actually helps them optimize their costs as well. Now, if we look at top technology skills, it's software development, data analytics, UI, UX. So these are the top skills where gig hiring is happening. Top ways, where gig is creating impact is it is helping organization in increased efficiency with respect to completion of tasks. They're also seeing reduced time to hire if they are able to get a gig on board. Also, 53% of organizations said that, they are absorbing gig workers as full-time employees. So in a way, it is helping them find the right talent as well. Over 90% of the organization said that, they are happy to rehire them again for projects, if they have a requirement. And they're also highlighting that, they're able to attract, diversify talent through gig. So they are 45% of the organization highlighted they're open to hire retired professionals. And 27% of the gig workers who are being hired in the tech industry are women. So basically, it is also helping them diversify their overall, employee base in a way. Now, everything good, but there are certain challenges also that when organizations are looking to hire gig, they face. They're saying that it's very difficult to get quality of talent. Similarly, they do face a lot of challenge with respect to verification and security check of the gig worker. Plus, maturity of the policies are not, for gig right now. So maybe a lot of companies, they have started hiring gig, but the policies still have to be mature. So what we believe is these are all procedural in nature. And if we can, actually, I think majority of the organization can easily mitigate these challenges and look for gig hiring. Now, what we have seen and heard companies talking is, that if we have a structured engagement model, with respect to gig, I think that will help companies deploy gig workers more comfortably. So we actually had worked on certain best practices, and we have some recommendations also for the broader stakeholders. So one of the key things is, companies need to work on culture. So when we say culture, we are saying that it should be a priority for both business and HR to make the gig worker, comfortable when they are working with the overall employee base, so that they feel at home. Then there is a need to codify agreements. I think at all levels, whether it's in small organization or the large organization, it's important that all the policies are in place so that the whole engagement is faster, the onboarding is faster, and there are no hiccups later. Again, with respect to the task at hand, I think if organizations are able to, deconstruct the roles in a manner where every small role can be carved out separately, I think they will be able to hire more of gig workers and solve for their talent issues. So I think that's an important point for organizations to look at, specifically for those who are, looking at hiring of gig and are still not using gig as a work model. Also, as things move, companies maybe increase the number of gig workers they are hiring. There's a need to execute and continually improve as to, what kind of gig workers, for what skills, for what profiles are you hiring, and then keep improving on things as and when, you face challenges. Now, certain recommendations that we had as part of our analysis was, for the industry, it's important to work on policies. I just highlighted that in best practices as well. And then, one thing that can be done is, they should encourage retired and women folks, maybe who moved out of work for their own reasons, so that there's a good diversified mix of people who are coming and working with the organizations. Plus, I think security, which was highlighted as one of a key challenge, I think with the use of technology and all the new systems with respect to Aadhaar and everything that we have at hand, I think that can help solve for some of that. And obviously, they need to continually work on an inclusive culture where the gig workers also feel comfortable. Now, I think for gig workers, it's very important that they need to invest on their skills, because specialized skills is one of the key reasons why a company goes out and looks out for hiring for a gig role. Then they need to, they can utilize online gig platforms like a Pactera, Flexing IT, where, they can go and register themselves and see if they have roles for themselves. Now, for those securities are concerned for organizations, I think it's an equal responsibility for the gig worker to have the best of business ethics and data security. Similarly, it's the responsibility of the gig worker also to maintain all professional ethics, and so that there are no concerns with respect to, whether it's about security or about data or anything that the organization could feel threatened with. In terms of external gig platforms, I think it's a responsibility for them to verify all the credentials, because if the organizations and the workers are coming to this common platform, it's important to verify credentials for each other. So they should be sure that all the organizations that are coming and joining the platform, or people who are coming and joining the platform, are credible to the best of their ability that they can check. Again, they should also encourage more of retired and women folks to come and join these portals. Now, in terms of the outlook, what we heard from organization was that they will continue to increase, the share of gig workers that they have. Majority said that, and top gigable roles that we see will be there in demand in future are software development, product development, data analytics, AI, ML, cloud computing, digital marketing, content management, sourcing and recruitment, UI, UX design, and data science. So I think gig is here to stay and it will continue to grow. And as a model, we have seen some successes coming through, and I'm sure that we'll see more coming in the next years to come. So I think with that, I can move ahead with the session today. So with that, today we start with the session discussion, Gig the New Workforce Model. Joining us today are very special guests from Giggr Technologies and Pactera Edge. On behalf of NASSCOM Insights, I would like to welcome Mr. Subbu Iyer, Founder and Chief Executive Officer, Giggr Technologies. Mr. Iyer is a designer and digital architect with a proven track record to transform and lead solution design and architecture, business strategy, business processes, and technology applications that integrate digital, business, and IT capabilities and infrastructure, including physical and virtual real estate, empirical and analytical data, and business and cognitive intelligence. He also has equal felicity in building and deploying platforms, processes, projects, and project mode of delivery. Welcome, Mr. Iyer.
Thank you, Neha. It's a privilege to be here.
Before I move to Dinesh, Mr. Iyer, I would like you to just tell us something more about Giggr, what it does. Yeah.
So Giggr Technologies is a digital platform that is an intelligent infrastructure as service. And what it does is it fuses the 5 elements of a process, which is data, talent, capital, materials, and infrastructure with cognitive intelligence along the flow of work in order to produce transformational and sustainable outcomes in every sphere of life.
So moving forward, I would like to introduce our second panelist today. We also have Dr. Dinesh Chandrasekar, Chief Strategy Officer at Pactera Edge. Dr. Chandrasekar has over 24 years of progressive technology and consulting experience in enterprise applications, advanced analytics, automations, AI, and digital technologies. A strategic technology leader who believes in enabling human-centric, intelligent digital platforms and solutions for his clients. In his current role, he spearheads the corporate strategy for Pactera Edge in the capacity of Chief Strategy Officer and member of co-founding team. Dinesh is also a passionate digital solutions leader and strategy evangelist with a deep expertise in driving transformation initiatives that helps businesses to revolutionize the offerings, create new experience, and gain a competitive advantage with improved solution velocity and innovation. In his earlier stint with Hitachi, GE, and Citigroup, he was instrumental in building CRM, MDM, analytics, cloud, IoT, and innovation practice. Welcome to the discussion, Dinesh, today.
Thanks, Neha.
Dinesh, before we move forward, we'll also like to know a little bit of Pactera Edge so that our audience can understand what you do. Yeah.
Thanks, Neha. So Pactera Edge is a digital transformation company. We mainly focus on data AI analytics. We are one of the top 5 players in the AI analytics space, and our customers are Fortune 500 customers, and we also work with the major platform players. So we have an employee strength of over 3,800 people. We almost operate in 40 different countries. In addition to that, we have a gig workforce of over 1 million. Right. With that workforce, we are able to serve the platforms and the Fortune 500 companies, especially on their AI algorithm developments. We are kind of create a data pipeline for them in training their algorithm. Right. So happy to be part of this session.
Thank you, Dinesh. Moving ahead, I think we can start with, how have the rise of gig happened in the post-pandemic world? It's growing importance. How do you see that growing both globally and as well as in India? So I think maybe I'll start with you, Dinesh, first, and then maybe we can listen, Mr. Iyer.
Right. Thanks, Neha. So if you look at pre-pandemic, I'm talking about 2018, right? There was a NASSCOM report which says that there are 43 million people were involved in the gig economy, right? Doing the different types of gigs actually. Fast forward, when we look at 2022-23, the estimated number is close to 78 million, which is the size of that of a France, right? The population of that of a France actually. So we have a country of gig workers working today. In terms of population, if we look at it, is like one of the 20th countries, like one among the 20th of the top populated countries in the world. So gig is definitely gaining a lot of importance, especially you look at the millennials coming and Gen X actually, they see a gig is a viable option for employment today, right? Earlier, if you look at a few decades back, only a few set of people have taken a freelance job, the subcontracting work. Today, definitely a gig has taken a prominence and it is expected to grow multifold. The NASSCOM reports has got a lot of evidence of the survey that is conducted. A lot of enterprises also is welcoming to bring in the gig economy in their the way of delivering the work, right? We work with the Fortune 500 companies. There is a complete mind shift change of the enterprise leaders to see how they can help the organizations to take leverage of the talent that is outside the organization as well as the partners. A Giggr force, it comes with a lot of creativity. When you look at the millennials and Gen X, right, what they bring to the table may not be a very structured knowledge, but the kind of creativity, the way they see the world, what is coming in the future, they are the best ambassadors to bring the change, the way we see the future that is coming in. So it's a future of work, and if you want to make that relevant to today's environment, definitely we need to have the gig coming in. That's where I see. In India also, it's I could see that the tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 population, right, where there is a lot of welcoming change, them to come and contribute in form of a gig, where they're not waiting for an employment. Through this process, they also get their experience to get into a mainstream work area. Say, for example, somebody wants to get into a software development, right? People are not waiting for a job, right? They said, okay, I'll do some kind of a gig employment on my skills, right? Get some more additional knowledge of doing things with multiple enterprise as a gig workforce, and then come to the mainstream of work, right? And companies also go to the, like a company like us, Pactera Edge, right? We leverage across the globe, not just in India, across the globe, a lot of cities which are in tier 2 and tier 3, citizens to come and participate in our work, what we do for platforms and Fortune 500 companies.
Sure,
Thanks.
sure. Thanks, Dinesh. Mr. Iyer, your thoughts?
I'm in great agreement with the numbers that you have put out from the NASSCOM report. I very heartily second what Dinesh talks about in terms of the opportunity. And I think that this is going to grow. So there is absolutely no disagreement or disillusionment about that. There are a few considerations that we need to table at this point in time, right? I think we have traditionally grown, especially in India, with this notion of headcount, and also the time and material mindset, right? So gig workforce today is a lot more comfortable in this environment of time and material and headcount, right? But I think that if I zoom this down really quickly, we find that capital is very scarce, especially in recent times. Capital is getting even more and more demanding, right? And I think so. Whether we buy a refrigerator or whether we get a person on board, right? The 5 things that we look at: quality, cost, delivery, service, and flexibility. 5 things that essentially we need to look at. Quality is doing it right the first time. Cost is basically what is economical in terms of the overall project size. Delivery is the ability to deliver within this economy and time of what is defined. And then the service is basically the empathy or understanding requirements, not getting into change requirements more frequently. And flexibility is being able to deliver from anywhere. We've talked about the post-pandemic environment where you have to be able to deliver. So on all these 5 fronts, right, there are both sides. From the workforce perspective, there is a great amount of preparation that needs to be done. And from the workplace perspective of corporates wanting to employ, we are not yet prepared there to provide the right kind of infrastructure, the right kind of last mile connectivity, so that we can make the workforce and the workplaces working with one another in a symbiotic manner that delivers both operations and innovation mutually inclusively. So I think while this is a very healthy trend that we see in terms of the flexibility of gig workforce working towards, the mind shift needs to shift from the time and material and basis to a more value oriented environment, and that will increase the necessity and the speed of both sides to improve the capabilities. And this is basically what I'd like to place on the table.
Sure. Thank you. Now, I think we talked about, the growth of gig, and it is there to stay. Now, in terms of, if you look at the sectoral breakup, which sectors do you think is, going well, and where do you think, and specific to technology, any thoughts that you might have? So maybe we'll start with you, Mr. Iyer, and then maybe Dinesh can pitch in there.
So you mentioned something very significant. That is, manufacturing is still the largest employer in the country, right? Um, I think the supporting data should also say agriculture, right? Agriculture and manufacturing are two of the largest, but very, very close to that, you will essentially find technology. Now, a large part of that technology employment has come from work being conducted overseas. Okay, and that work needs, there is a lot more. And if technology is employed in the Indian industry and sector, you can see the requirement shooting through the roof, and therefore the requirement for talent and so on. So I think these are the three sectors. But having said that, I think every sphere, starting with healthcare, there is a humongous amount of work in healthcare and education. In fact, that will actually become the engine for gig workforce. I'm talking not only for example, if I take a small a radio engineer in healthcare, right? The person should not only know how to operate the machine, but needs to expand the scope of work in terms of being able to complete the annotations in the report, being able to distribute it, and work on even perhaps even maintenance of the equipment from time to time. So where I'm coming from is there is every single sector, starting from environment to education to health, wealth, technology, mobility, and environment. There is a humongous opportunity, but that rides on the back of building new capabilities, uh, and then driving it down. But yes, the top three will continue to grow, which is agriculture, especially agri-tech, is going to go tremendously with manufacturing, which basically ends up in CPG, if you may. And of course, the third area, which is technology itself, is building technology, whether it is for our own country or supporting the requirements of countries worldwide.
Sure. Agree. Dinesh, your thoughts?
I take the reference of the NASSCOM report, which well summarized this one. If you look at the post-pandemic situation, the sectors which hired gig workers, so astonishing 57% was hired by tech industry, followed by services, manufacturing, BFSI, and FMCG and pharma. Right. The best part of this is actually the most of the companies, right, which hired the gig workforce, they are seeing them as part of their employee ecosystem, right? Even though there is a differentiation in terms of compensation and how they have been treated, but they were able to blend the gig workforce along with their permanent employees and able to deliver the work, which we see very much when we deliver a large scale projects for some of our customers. We don't normally differentiate much between our employees as well as the gig, actually, because the quality we deliver has to be the same irrespective of an employee delivering or a gig is delivering. And that also brings to a point that the care which has been given to the gig has to be further accelerated. So we have a lot of community programs to see that uh, how we actually embrace the gig workforce as equivalent to that of an employee, or if matters, how do we bridge the gap of the way of treatment what we give to our employees to the gig, right? And the uberization of work, right? The lot of these things have been done through platforms, right? So
Yeah.
platforms is a kind of a leveler, right? Where the customer sees you are delivering things through platform. It doesn't matter whether it's been delivered by your employees or by the gig workforce. So more and more we get into this platform economy, right? The platform economy and gig economy are directly proportional. The more the platforms are going to grow, we have seen with some of the great Indian platforms we have today, right? Be it Zomato, Swiggy, Uber, Ola, and everywhere, right? This enabled us to accelerate the adoption of gig, right? And the more we are going to focus on the platforms, and every industry is a platform today, right? You take an industry, it's kind of a layover is over on any industry is a platform today, which is means to say that a tech is part and parcel of any industry today, right? So that way I see that most of the industries have embraced. Pharma is something uh, which is more experimenting of people using a certain drugs or giving them a feedback. But I think that will also change today, right? Because it's more of a regulatory. Wherever you have a lot of regulation and regulatory compliances there we see a lesser adoption of gig. Otherwise, other industries are more welcoming to have gig workers.
Yeah. Very valid point there. Now, if we look at, I have kind of touched upon a couple of drivers where, we were only looking at tech. But if we just go beyond technology, what are the key drivers that you think are driving both the demand and why people are coming over and joining gigs? So your viewpoint. So again, we can start with you, Dinesh, and maybe Mr. Iyer can follow. Yeah.
It is like moving away from a clock oriented work to a task oriented work, right? People don't mind working on a time frame. People want to do
Right.
the work with perfection, with their own time. A pandemic has really paved way for that actually. So people don't want to work between a 9 and 5, right? If I'm okay to work between 5 and early in the morning, they're fine. Especially the millennials and Gen X, they probably
Right.
want to work in the after dark hours, right? Because we have experienced when we give some kind of work packets for them to deliver, they say we are better off delivering the work in the evening. So definitely the flexibility is the main reason. Second is the work-life balance, right? Even some of the experts who are coming out of the corporates, right? Say for example, they say, hey, we don't want to do a 9 to 5 job, right? We want to spend enough amount of time with the family. And unfortunately, the health also is a reason. Like a lot of people are recovering from the COVID situations, which created in multiple
Right.
families, right? Every family has a story to tell today, right? So
Mhm.
what it means is that the extended care which people can give to them, that is also one of the reason which driving people to take a flexible work situations, right? And overall people also see that actually they don't need to be a permanent employee, right? The mind shift of people thinking that as long as my skills, I could enhance my skills, I can work with for multiple employees, right? And if there is no restriction for me, I'm okay to give my skills to as many people as possible. So these are the few things I feel, Neha, it's really helping us, helping the gig economy to grow.
No, I think I completely agree with that. And, you have partially answered my next question where I wanted to touch upon, the Gen Z part of it. So where, what are the kind of changes that we're seeing? And I think you rightly highlighted. So Mr. Iyer, maybe you would like to add certain pointers with respect to both the key drivers and what do you think the new generation is that playing an important role with this change?
So before I come to the new generation, I want to also provide a little twist to what Dinesh just talked about, right?
Sure.
You see, I think we have to change some of our age-old mindsets and definitions about. So gig is first and foremost considered freelance. I think we need to overturn that pyramid and we need to think about it as gig is work. Gig is not job. Gig is not employment. Gig is work, right? And then when we consider work, that can be done in the capacity of a solopreneur or an entrepreneur or even an entrepreneur. Even if somebody hires somebody on a temporary basis, that person can take ownership to the intellectual property or the asset that he's delivering. Okay. I have led my entire life, working in that manner, whether I worked for a Fortune 100 corporation or I started my own company, right? So I think that is a fundamental mind shift that we really need to exercise, because the minute you change that definition, the ownership of work transfers, and this will and I as I also alluded in one of my previous answers, right? There is a requirement that work be defined well in order for work getting executed well, right? Which means that there is a very definitive way in which you define the work, the requirements of that work with respect to capabilities, which is the capacity to transform and the ability to perform. It's just not the skills, right? Last but not the least, as Dinesh pointed out, there are a number of drivers for us, right? Which is, and one of the main drivers for most of us, all of us, there is nobody, I think, on the face of this earth who wakes up in the morning and says, I want to do bad work today, right? Everybody wants basically to deliver good work. They want to take pride. They want to take ownership of what they deliver. It is unfortunately our environment, our circumstances, the context in which we work, the expectations, if you may. If you are not giving me the right requirements, then why do I need to toil hard to figure it out and work for you, right? So there are, I think that and what I, therefore, this is the context that there is a huge requirement for making gig successful. How do we change this definition of what gig work really is? It is work. And how do we make that work successful with an equitable income for everyone, right? Then, of course, comes the point of convenience of how I can deliver it how I want it, how many gigs I can take, how much work I can do in a given day and maximize my income. Uh, that thirdly, it is not just about, to a large extent, we have somehow, and I think I can speak for this from all parts of the world, including India, that work that is repetitive and low in priority is normally what gig workers do to a large extent, right? And I think that there is so much of core work that needs to be done, important aspects of it. So we can't forget that. The reason I'm saying that is for a very specific reason. We have, as a society all over the world, we have this fundamental need to grow human capital. Right now, because of the fact that people find work and they're able to meet basic requirements of their life, somehow they settle, right? This is not allowing us to be able to promote more people to take risks and learn and become innovative and participate in the process of innovation. This is reflective in the most advanced societies like North America, and this is reflective in a growing economy like India. So I think there is a need. We need innovation. We just can't just be happy with the numbers. We have to figure a way in which we build human capital, right? Now, having said that, to your question, Neha, about the Gen Z, right? The Gen Z have not grown to the socio-economic context of some people like me. I am 58 years old, right? My children, 26 and 30, have grown to a very different context of life. So I think they're very enthusiastic. They have very strong views, but they need guidance. They need to be shaped to be able to understand how their contributions matter. And this is one generation who wants to contribute. They are more than consumers. They want to contribute, but they don't know how. And I think this generation needs to be shaped in that. And I must add very quickly that there is one more generation, Gen A, which is the 8 to 18, that is coming up more than the Gen Z. I want that generation of Gen A who are still working with conditioned mindsets. You can do this, you can't do this. No, they have to decide it by themselves. They have to apply. I'm saying that if an eight-year-old aspires to be a physician when he or she grows up, they need to be able to start knowing what is an ambulatory service, what is a nursing service, what happens in an emergency room. They must start their apprentice. So I'm talking about a gig workforce. That is a gig workforce, right? That very enthusiastically participates in their spare time, right? And we should not look at that. And this is basically broadening it. We should not look down upon the 8 to 18s and say, give them a Raspberry set and say, play with it. No, don't play with it. Create real life applications, right? We should be able to not tell them, write a simple Java code for an execution. No, we should give them the aspiration to build a platform, because I think we can get more out of them, right, than any other age segment, because they do not carry the baggage, and they need to expand their minds, and they need to tear themselves out of the limitations that all of us have been born and lived with, right? And they should be able to. They should be creators. They should not be just consumers. And that is basically where I see this great opportunity with the Gen A and the Gen Z to become creators who can create a new world, a new era.
Agree. And I think the whole gig model is one good support system for them, so they don't have to stick to something. You
Right.
have that opportunity, go explore and do it.
Right.
Yeah. So I think moving towards the last question for the session that I have, so maybe I'll start with Dinesh this time. I really want to know, the outlook and the challenges that you see. So we have talked about all good that's happening, but I'm sure, that as organization highlighted, it's not that all easy. Plus, there are certain challenges. How are we solving for it? And overall outlook that you see for the gig workforce, the gig economy, both India and globally. So Dinesh, your thoughts, and maybe Mr. Iyer can add.
So, Neha, from an outlook perspective, I see the world, the next decade is going to be very redefining the work, as Iyer mentioned, actually, right? The work is going to be viewed very differently, and that's to Gen Z and Gen A population that is coming. What we are seeing here today is, say, today we take a work, right? See, I'm taking the reference of the work which we do on the platform side and tech side and all this, right? Earlier, if you take few decades back, the work is done by humans and a mission, right? The missions were operated and missions were told what needs to be done, right? Instructed. Today, missions are part of the workforce, right? Most of the works are done by robots. We call them as a cobots. The future of work is going to be a mix of human and the mission intelligence, AI, ML, whatever you want to, cognitive intelligence. A set
Sure.
of the workforce which we employ today in gig today is training those missions. AML, right? The bots, which takes over the lot of things which are customer service. And as a value chain of going into the intelligence, right? The fusion of human-centric intelligence, I would call it, right? Where there is a lot more that needs to be done, where we need a lot of human capital to train the mission intelligence, right? For that, it requires a lot more democratization of education. It's no more, it's required, you need to have an engineer to do certain things, right? As long as Mr. Iyer mentioned, if somebody has that kind of aptitude and have built that cognitive capability to develop something, it could be a 12th grader, it could be a 10th grader, it could be a tier 2 guy, tier 3 guy, it doesn't matter, right? So a lot of things would change today. So that's where we see organizations are welcoming. There are today a Meta or a Microsoft or a big organization, they don't ask for your education certificate. They just look at the skills and they don't even going to ask you whether you want to be an employed or you want to be a gig workforce. That's how it's going to be the future, right? While working all this are outlook, very rosy picture, prospective, we want it to be there. But the challenges still we don't have a structured system. Say, for example, in India, we have something called Ishram, right, which is a portal for the unorganized workforce, right, where the people don't have a EPF or a employee health schemes there. They are only eligible to register there, right? Apart from that, a country like India, which we have done it great, right, but not many countries are prepared to manage the gig, right, especially when it comes to health of the individual as well as the family. There is no system to support them. So it is a responsibility of the industry, not just the government, right? It's not the government because the industry is a consumer of this gig economy. They have to come together and make sure they've been given the equal security which an employee gets. That is very, very important, right? And there is a lot of investment that has to be put in this space, right? Not just by a body like a NASSCOM and other people. A lot of other investment has to come where we can train this community not to have that badge of an employee, right? It is a workforce where they are very take pride on the skills and the experience they accumulate, not really wearing a badge of an employee or the social security they get out of it, right? If you could democratize that work, that's the future of work for me, right? So this challenges definitely has to be worked by the industry, NASSCOMs of the world, right? Everyone has to come together. So these are my thoughts, Neha.
Sure, agree. Mr. Iyer.
Um, the one of the biggest challenges that we face today, anywhere on earth and amplified, perhaps exponentially in India, is a deficit of leadership. This deficit of leadership is basically 5 A's. If the leadership means it's basically 5 A's. The first one is aspiration. If we look at, if we ask 10 Indians, what do you aspire? Right? You will not get a satisfactory answer. Aspiration is not a dream. Aspiration is not an ambition. It is a visualization of what a future can be that includes the society in which you are a part of it, right? And so I think this is a cultural shift that we need. So leadership is not just, not leadership training sessions and so on. I think it's a culture we need to develop. So the first one is aspiration. It is closely followed by agility. If you're not agile, there is no reason why. So, like I keep saying, you cannot establish a sustainability goal for 2050 when you're not even going to live, right? So you need to be able to take accountability, and that requires agility. Agility is the only way in which. So following very closely with agility, you need to be able to anticipate. That is the third one. When you anticipate, you become authentic. That is, you're ready for the consequences of your action. That you will own whether it is a good or a bad consequence, but you will experiment, right? You will not stop from experimenting. And last but not the least comes the ability to execute, right? These five essential qualities of leadership we find lacking at every level in every society. In India, it is far more amplified, right? So I think leadership is a key thing we need to develop. The second most important thing, and it's like a yin and the yang. You can have the ability to learn. The attention span, most of they say that the attention span of the Gen Z or the Gen A is very small. They don't have the capacity to read. I disagree, quite honestly, right? The reason is they may watch short videos, they may watch TikTok, but they watch them on a binge. They watch their favorite shows on a binge, right? They enjoy a party on a binge. So they are spending enormous amounts of time in areas where they find their interest. So there is a responsibility to create content, okay, that can be engaging. So the very essence is, yes, we need to take responsibility. The rest of the generations, that is the 25 to 40, the Gen Y, the Gen X, the 40 to 60 and the 60 plus baby boomers. We need to now start putting ourselves in the shoes of the Gen A and the Gen Zs, and to be able to create purpose content that they can train, practice, and perform. So I think there is a requirement, there is a, as a society, we need to start understanding, how we create and make learning, as a, because, we have all grown with conditioned mindsets. We have grown on a financial ecosystem. We are being governed by, e-commerce. It's a commerce-driven economy, right? Which basically thrives on the principle of selling to your vulnerability, not to your strengths. Don't blame them. That is just the business model. They are accountable to their shareholders. So I'm not blaming that system. But if we need to basically change and make a transformation happen in our society for growth, for sustainability, then we need to start looking at learning, a conscious way of learning. And that conscious way of learning is essentially a discipline in terms of being able to say, how am I, not regulation, despite all the regulation in the United States, you still have a Bankman Fried who basically is able to beat the system, right? So, there is nothing wrong with the concept of, cryptocurrency, but it's, before it comes to the market, there needs to be a way in which we know that this is the right currency. And then it can prosper, right? And this is all, we are creating this process. So this creation that we talk about has to be more accountable, more responsible, and more circular. So three things: leadership, learning, and accountability. I think these are essential in the way in which we look at gig workforce. That changes the way we think about work, and not just about, whether it is freelance work or whether it is remote work, and so on and so forth.
Sure, sure. So I think, and just to add to what you just said is, if you really have to change the way people are thinking, their mindset, I think a lot has to be done by the education system we all have. So I think the kids are preconditioned because we make them learn that way. So I think that learning has to shift a lot.
Yes.
So that whole system, everybody needs to come together and, make things work. Yeah. So agree with that. And I think with that, we are good to close the session. And I would like to thank both of you for the wonderful insights that you have shared. So from my side, from NASSCOM Insights side, I would like to say thank you, Mr. Iyer and Dr. Chandrasekar, for joining us today. And that's it from this edition of Tech Talks. Stay tuned for more insightful discussions happening in the Indian technology industry with NASSCOM Insights YouTube channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. Till then, it's a goodbye from everyone here at NASSCOM Insights. And thank you, Mr. Iyer and Dinesh, again for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
NASSCOM.
Neha. Thank